You know, I don't think there's anything worse than a corporate bootlicker or a shill that constantly goes out of their way to defend garbage content. For whatever reason. Either they're a content creator who is looking for exclusives, or maybe they're just a failed industry person desperately looking for a job. But at the end of the day, the people who display these types of opinions should not be taken seriously. They simply use toxic positivity to deflect valid criticism, and that is exactly why I have no respect for these people. It's their fault that we can't get better content, because they choose to live a life of sucking dick instead of having any level of integrity. And every single day, these people expose themselves, either on YouTube or on social media, as the frauds that they are. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
So normally I don't do video game content because, to be quite honest with you, I'm disconnected from that world. And I usually only make videos about things that I care about or that I'm passionate about. To be completely honest with you, I think the gaming industry in a lot of ways is very similar, if not worse, than the entertainment industry. What I see is a lot of remakes of classic games, a lot of shady tactics like microtransactions and releasing games before they are finished. And for that reason, as well as many others, I've pretty much all but checked out of the video game world. But last year, when news broke about this Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game, and the controversy around it, you knew I had to chime in. Because let's face it, you do not need to be an avid gamer to recognize some bullshit when you see it. But I reacted to this game in the same way that anyone who has love for the Arkham games would react to it. In disgust. Disgust in regards to how they treated the character of Batman. Disgust in the fact that this was one of the legendary Kevin Conroy's final voiceover performances. Like many others, it left a very bad taste in my mouth, and it also beat home the idea that this was no longer the Rocksteady of old. For that reason, and for the fact that I have little to no interest in anything Suicide Squad related to begin with, needless to say, I had no intention of ever playing this game, and I still don't. Now, sometime after the news broke about Batman's unfortunate fate in this game, it was also reported that this game is already being considered a massive financial failure. And rightfully so. And that, my friends, is the very definition of f**k around and find out. You see, my motto for movies applies to video games as well. That being, stop making shit that nobody asked for.
Stop it!
You see, Rocksteady found out the hard way what happens when you disrespect and undermine iconic characters. Ironically, just 1 week ago, it was reported that Rocksteady was hit by year-end layoffs. Now, I'm not one to advocate for anyone to lose their job because it's just not my style, but I do think that some lessons can be learned if we continue to hold companies accountable by speaking with our wallets. Fast forward to present day, and it appears that the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League game has officially come to an end, after receiving its final update. And in its finale, it is revealed that the Arkhamverse Batman is still alive, and it was a Batman clone who died.
You serious?
So now the debate begins. That being, was this always the plan? Or is this the most obvious, desperate pivot attempt by Rocksteady? A company who has now realized that they f***ed up and are desperately trying to salvage what is left of their already useless reputation. I'm inclined to believe the latter, simply because most DC content in recent years has been very reactionary. It's pretty much been their MO to release garbage and then backtrack on it, so why would this game be any different? I think Rocksteady was feeling the heat, and they decided to try and fix this situation last minute the best they could. Of course, the shills would have you believe that this was always the plan and that people were complaining for nothing. And I'd respond to that and say, criticizing something that deserves criticism does work, and I think this is another example of that being true.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
When you get right down to it, I'm of the opinion that this game should have never happened in the first place. Because the entire concept of killing the Justice League sucks anyway. And ironically, after retroactively trying to fix it, you have now made it suck even more. Of all of the ways they could have addressed this, they went with the lame-ass excuse that they were killing clones as an explanation. I find it very hard to believe that they would design an entire game around the concept of killing the Justice League, only to reveal that it wasn't really the Justice League at the end of the game, and that's why I think this is a pivot. And from all accounts, it sounds like the people who have played the game have said that the ending feels very forced or even rushed. So that only reinforces the concept that this was never intended to be the finale of the game in the first place. Either that or Rocksteady just has really piss poor writers, both of which are very believable. In the end, it doesn't really matter because all this really did was further expose Rocksteady and their creative incompetence.
Why are you the way that you are?
Now listen, I'm sure there were some people who managed to have a decent time with this game and weren't paying attention to all the noise, and you know what, I'm happy for those people. But it's very clear to me that a majority of people didn't even care enough to give the game a chance. And that I think is most telling. No amount of pivoting and reactionary storytelling is going to change the fact that this game was a failure, and will probably be forgotten about just as quickly as it came into existence. The Arkham games, on the other hand, will live on forever based on the hours upon hours of quality entertainment they have provided gamers over the years. I still firmly believe that this was a failed attempt to do something edgy by Rocksteady. They knew there was no chance in hell that they would ever be able to replicate the success that the previous regime at Rocksteady had with the character, so in the most petty way possible, they simply killed him off.
If he dies, he dies.
The only thing that they didn't take into account is how the fandom would react. Because clearly, the new regime at Rocksteady doesn't have the same level of respect and love for the Arkhamverse games that we do. The Arkham Batman was a past success story they needed to get out of the way, so they used him as a stepping stone in the most gimmicky way possible, in hopes of creating hype for their garbage game that they know could never measure up. It's a tactic that Hollywood uses when they bring back legacy characters, just so they can undermine them as a way of building up new, less interesting characters, and this is pretty much the same energy. That being said, after 2 failed movies and now a failed video game, I think it's time to put the Suicide Squad back on the shelf. It's bad enough that we have an abundance of misfit group stories dominating our entertainment right now, but I've said it before and I'll say it again here, the Suicide Squad is nowhere near as popular as WB, DC, and now Rocksteady think that it is.
It's true.
To me, it is a niche thing that has clearly run its course, and absolutely no one was going to accept this group of characters being the ones who finally take down one of the best versions of Batman we've ever had. And that goes for whether he was a clone or not. This was an awful idea from the start, and the worst part is they could have avoided all of this by simply just not using the Arkhamverse Batman. But you see, that would have ruined their misguided and tone-deaf plan. To me, Rocksteady should be ashamed of themselves for putting out this type of product under the same banner, in the same universe, as their biggest success story.
Y'all be cool. Nah.